Friday in the city of Lagos. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Nigeria. Welcome to the conversation here on Lagos Television. I am Abimbola Bilo.
Good morning and welcome. I am Joy Olu. The
Okay.
weather is cool, but we're already at work.
It's more. It's not that no, so me, I don't understand. We're at work.
There's no
Okay.
Itumo, I'm just saying what is happening. What is the producer saying?
In fact, I can't begin to tell you what my producer is saying on national television. Don't worry, I'll tell you afterwards, so you can decide if you want to beat him, or you
I
want to
think I
buy,
have an idea of
or
what he
maybe
has
you want to
said.
buy him lunch. Welcome to the show. We apologize for coming a little behind schedule. We just needed to be sure everything was intact before coming to you this morning. Of course, we intend to make your Friday a memorable one with the conversation today. Just one conversation we'll be having, and I'm sure that it will be as interesting as it was. We had a part one 2 weeks ago. We intend to conclude, hopefully, because things about money, marriage, love, you can't exhaust them. They are, from one, you jump from one place to the other. So let's get the show started this morning by beginning with our news point. I will start on this side this morning. And of course, it's this first story is on xenophobia. Tinubu activates crisis support measures for Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu has directed Nigerian mission in South Africa to immediately establish a crisis notification unit to assist Nigerians facing threats amid rising xenophobic tensions and anti-migrant protests in the country. This development followed renewed concerns over the safety of Nigerians living in South Africa after recent anti-foreigner demonstrations, including protests held in Durban on Wednesday. Minister of Foreign Affairs Ambassador Bianca Odumegu Ojukwu disclosed the president's directive on Thursday in a post on her Facebook page after a telephone conversation with South Africa's Foreign Affairs Minister Ronald Lamola. According to her, and I quote, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has directed that the Nigerian missions in South Africa set up with immediate effect a crisis notifications unit for imperiled citizens who have also been advised first and foremost to contact SA security authorities whenever dangerous situations arise. End of quote. Otumegu Ojukwu said Lamola had expressed concern over Nigerians' plans to evacuate citizens willing to leave South Africa due to the growing anti-foreigner sentiment and attacks targeting migrants. The minister stressed that the Nigerian government would not ignore the reported harassment and killings of its citizens in South Africa. In his quote, I maintained that our government cannot stand by and watch the systematic harassment and humiliations of our nationals residents in SA, as well as the extrajudicial killings of our people, and that the evacuation of our citizens who want to return home remains our government priority at this time. So that quote is still from Ambassador Bianca. While noting that the latest protest in Durban did not turn violent because of heavy security deployment, she said Nigerians were advised to remain indoors and shut their businesses temporarily. That's the thrust of the story this morning, and we've been on this story for days, and we've said that if anything at all, the South African government also needs to take responsibility for the security of Nigerians and other nationals who are in that country. But now is, what we have now is Mr. President saying if there are citizens who want to come back home, ensure that they come back home in one piece. And there's no better way to do it than to have it in a coordinated manner, which of course the South African mission, the Nigerian mission in South Africa will coordinate. So for Nigerians who are in South Africa who would like to come back home, there's a way to reach out to them so they can take your details and of course keep you abreast with the situation as it arises. But I mean, I think it was yesterday that I saw that a couple of videos that were emanating from South Africa. Now there are security agencies on the, in within the city and are actually confronting, these guys who are also going about taking laws into their hands. I think more of that should be done. That should be sustained. And if you really do not have any business going out, you know,
For safety.
yeah,
Stay
safety,
indoors.
stay indoors. But then again, for how long? If you don't work, how will you feed? If your children can't go to school, then it's a whole lot of problems. So if you ask people to stay indoors, for how long are they going to stay indoors? So this still it still needs a lot of diplomatic relationship, so that this matter can be done and dusted with once and for all.
Another thing that worries me in this report also, she stated about Nigerian children and also children born of Nigerian and South African parents are called Salgarians and they are bullied in schools. I mean, and then she said again in the report that it's as if it's targeted towards black Africans. So is it now a color thing?
How many South Africans are white?
Are white.
Yes, we know some of them are white, and those, of course, are the Africans, you know. But then how many of them? And if you also look at it, they are also in a concentrated place in South Africa. And I'm not sure they are the ones actually doing this. We've seen videos, we've seen the people. We are not different. The colors are same. So what do you mean by black Africans?
I don't know.
Africa is Africa.
Africa is Africa.
Irrespective of your color. If you're
yeah.
an African, you are an African. So let's stop. It's appalling that we're even seeing racism amongst ourselves.
ourselves.
So if we are fighting ourselves, then what are we talking about? It's sad. We just do hope that, you know, this brotherhood thing can be seen from a larger perspective, and we see ourselves as one on the same continent. Let's take your first story.
Okay, because this is a matter of safety and concern. NIMET warns of flooding in Lagos, Delta, Rivers, 16 other states. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency has issued a warning that 19 states across the country may experience flash flooding in the coming days due to expected heavy early rains. In an advisory released on Thursday, NIMET explained that the flooding risk is heightened because dry and hardened soils will prevent water from soaking properly into the ground, leading to increased surface runoff. The states likely to be affected are Zamfara, Nasarawa, Kwara, Oyo, Lagos, Ogun, Ekiti, Delta, Imo, Anambra, Enugu, Ebonyi, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Rivers, Edo, Ondo, and Bayelsa. According to the agency, possible impacts of the flash floods include flooded roads, traffic disruptions, damage to homes, farmlands, and critical infrastructure, blocked drainage systems, power outages, telecommunication disruptions, as well as increased risks of injuries and waterborne diseases. And they're advising residents to take proactive measures by clearing blocked drainages around their homes and staying updated with official weather and flood alerts, also cautioning motorists and pedestrians to avoid driving or walking through flooded areas. Now, this is a warning coming from NIMET. And so again, thank God here in Lagos, the state government has reintroduced the monthly environmental sanitation. But again, you do not have to wait till that last Saturday before you clean your environment, especially now that the rains are here.
Absolutely. So these warnings, I mean, and that's why they are called warnings. It's just for you to be prepared. Sometimes NIMET, you know, will say these things. At the end of the day, the weather might have a different bold
prediction.
You know, exactly. So, I mean, these are predictions, and we intend to just for residents to be on the alert and, you know, just know that something of that magnitude may happen. So it behoves on, especially all those states that have been mentioned, to put measures in place, especially their state government and local government, to ensure that they are ready. If it happens, you know, they are ready. And if it doesn't happen, it's still part of safety and security measures. So it doesn't hurt anyone just to be prepared for imminent disaster. The third story this morning, Senate amends Electoral Act to clarify jurisdiction in election disputes. The Senate on Thursday passed an amendment to the 2026 Electoral Act bill seeking to establish a clearer legal framework for the handling of pre-election disputes ahead of the next general elections. The bill was passed during plenary following the presentation and consideration of a report by the Senate Committee on INEC chaired by Simon Lalong. The proposed legislation amends Section 29 of the Electoral Act and introduces a new section 29A, aimed at addressing lingering jurisdictional disputes in the adjudication of pre-election matters. Leading the debate on the report, Lalong said the amendment became necessary due to persistent legal and constitutional controversies surrounding the interpretation of pre-election cases by courts across the country. Now I quote, "The legitimacy of candidates and the integrity of party primaries are foundational pillars of representative democracy. Where the legal framework regulating pre-election disputes is uncertain or conflicting, the entire election architecture becomes vulnerable to confusion, forum shopping, contradictory judgments, and unnecessary delays," Lalong said. He explained that despite the provisions of Section 285, Sub 14 of the 1999 Constitution, defining pre-election matters, conflicting interpretations by courts had continued to create uncertainty in Nigeria's electoral jurisprudence. Let me just quickly go to where they are looking at an amendment. Now, under the proposal, disputes relating to National Assembly, governorship, and state houses of assembly elections would originate at the Federal High Court, with appeals proceeding to the Court of Appeal. For president and vice presidential elections, however, such matters would originate directly at the Court of Appeal, exercising original jurisdiction with appeals lying at the Supreme Court. Lalong said the arrangement was designed to promote judicial efficiency and align with the constitutional importance of presidential elections. Anyways, so it's a proposal, and I do hope that, of course, they have their reasons for wanting to do this. I think also this has to do with timing, monies being spent, and of course the duration for which all these things can also happen. So which means that if this particular framework scales through, it means that litigation will start from for certain, I think the governors and assemblies, it will start from the lower court. You know, now they start from the what do they set up after the election? They set up tribunal. So from the tribunal, then they go to the High Court, and then they go to the appeal, then they go to Supreme. So meaning that now they'll start from the High Court, and then probably terminate at the appeal court. And then for the presidential, it will be from the appeal, and then terminate at the Supreme Court. I think what we should also be aiming for, or aiming at, is to get our elections right. Yeah. If we get our elections right, issues around litigation will be minimal, and there will be no need to belabor the courts with election issues. So I think we should work towards that as a country, and mandate INEC to give Nigeria a free, fair, and credible election.
Okay, moving forward, workers will vote out anti-labor governors in 2027, and this is coming from the NLC. Warning. The Nigeria Labour Congress has warned that governors perceived as hostile to workers' welfare risks being voted out in the 2027 general elections. The union declared that Nigerian workers are prepared to mobilize politically against administrations accused of neglecting labor interests. The acting general secretary of the NLC, Benson Okpa, said workers across the country were becoming increasingly conscious of their electoral strength and would no longer support leaders who failed to prioritize their welfare. Speaking with this news medium in Abuja, Okpa said governors who undermined workers through poor welfare policies, delayed salaries, unpaid pensions, mass retrenchment, or refusal to implement labor agreements would face consequences at the polls. He said worker-friendly governors, on the other hand, have nothing to fear, irrespective of party affiliation. Let me stop it here. It's self-explanatory. Should I rephrase? That if you are not worker-friendly, that is, you are not taking care of your workers in your state, that you risk being re-elected in 2027. But those who are worker-friendly have nothing to fear.
Okay. Well, it is coming from Labour, I presume, and I'm sure that they would also find a way to get this, you know, message to workers, because it is the majority of the workers that would actually cast the vote and not necessarily labor. So it's a long one, really, you know, coming from labor. But I think governors also, well, not only governors, electoral individuals need to be put on their toes, and you know, we must also be able to hold them accountable for whatever it is that they do. All right, let's go on the X platform this morning and take a look at one of the many trending stories there. Of course, this morning, a former president is trending. A former president that you said, you know what, okay, you won, I concede, and he left gingerly. Now, a lot of, well, according to reports, a lot of Nigerians, or some Nigerians, are prevailing on him to consider, you know, vying for, you know, the post of the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria again in the 2027 elections. And he said he will go back and think about it.
Well, I listened to the video online, and I watched it, and I like that he, you know, talked about, because from what he said, he was addressing young people.
Right.
And he said, many of you say, I don't know how old you were when I was president, but do you have your voter's card? And then he said that the presidential race is not a computer game.
It's not even rocket science.
It's not rocket science. And if you ask me, my own personal opinion, they should leave him alone.
I think he actually wants to be left alone. But, you know, he had to be subtle about it. And you remember that Mommy Patience had said, I beg, leave Aso Rock, the way Aso Rock is.
She's enjoying her life.
You know, she's enjoying her life and her peace as it stands. But again, it just shows that, you know, sometimes individuals must also know their strengths, their weaknesses, must know when to say no, must know when not to be allowed to be used, must know when, you know, it has to be your prerogative. You can't say because people are saying do this, then you want to do that. No, it has to come from you as an individual. So whether or not former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan wants to contest as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, you know, either in 2027 or in the near future, it has to come from him. It has to be his decision, and he needs to think it through before he can make that decision that, you know what, I think I'm ready to do this again, and not, you know, either be pushed or, you know, be waylaid, or, you know, be
used as a tool.
I think he's even too old to be used as a tool. So I'm not sure that will happen. But again, in politics, never say never. Right. That said, you can go on the X platform this morning to take a further read on why Goodluck Jonathan is trending. Okay, we need to take a break now. And when we return, the conversation will be here. And this morning, we're going back to that conversation we had 2 weeks ago. And I'm sure that definitely it's going to be expanded this morning because, again, like I said, when you talk about love, money, marriage, relationship, these things are interwoven and you cannot box one to a corner. So, of course, we had this conversation with our sheikh the last time. We're hoping we could balance the equation this morning by bringing in, you know, a lady whose perspective we can also hear this from. But unfortunately, you know, that didn't pull through. So this morning, we're going to continue this conversation after this short break when we return and our guest over here. And we'll probably also take a trip back to when we had this conversation to help us set the tone for today's conversation.